NewsNation, specifically our team here at Prime, to bring these missing cases into the national spotlight. And many of the cases that we cover each week come from the public. We spend a lot of time talking to family and friends and police investigating these missing persons cases in the hopes that it leads to some answers. In a moment, you will have a chance to join in the conversation and ask any questions or offer your comments that you have about tonight's case. So be listening very carefully as we lay out the details over the next several minutes. Tonight's case takes us to Florida. We are focusing on the disappearance of this young woman. Her name is Cieha Taylor. She was 28 years old when she disappeared in February of 2020. Brooke Schaefer spoke to Cieha's mom, and she will be joining us in a moment live to discuss what more she has learned in this case. But first, here is Cieha's story.
This is her 19th birthday.
Cieha Taylor's mom had to put away most of her daughter's pictures.
And this was her just goofing off one day when she was 15.
Looking at them is still too painful, but every day she prays she'll find out what happened to her daughter.
Just today, let today be the day that we have answers.
Cieha Taylor grew up in this house in Dade City, Florida, about 45 minutes outside of Tampa. Her mom, Cieha Taylor, said Cieha was fearless.
Cieha was a unique personality. She was big as life, smile, light up a room. She met no strangers. Like everybody always loved to be around her.
In February 2020, Cieha was 28 years old. Her mom admits Cieha would sometimes hang out with the wrong crowd. She was living with a boyfriend and a friend about 30 minutes from home in Plant City, Florida. On February 6, 2020, her mom says Cieha and that boyfriend got into a fight.
She was supposed to be going to one of the best friend's house because she was upset and she had called her and was crying.
But Cieha never showed up at her friend's house. Days later, a friend found her car on the side of the road near some train tracks. Seemingly everything Cieha owned was inside.
Everything, her clothes, her purse, her ID, her social security card, her bank card, everything she owned, her phone.
When you saw that, is that when you knew?
Yes.
Something's wrong?
Yes, because she never goes anywhere without her phone. She doesn't go anywhere without the other stuff either, but the phone was the main thing that set me to think something's wrong.
Her family filed a missing persons report with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. And that's when Cieha's family found out an officer and a deputy had actually spotted Cieha's car days before that, running and on the train tracks, but no one inside. We tried to talk to the lead detective on Cieha's case, but the Sheriff's Office said Cieha's disappearance is an active investigation. They pointed us instead to a podcast they put together about the case in August 2020. This is Detective Joseph Florio.
We did a thorough search of the vehicle, evidence processing wise. We recovered some fingerprints, but they were all known people to have been in the cars. I know specifically that we were able to identify Cieha Taylor's fingerprints in the car.
The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office says they've aggressively looked for Cieha Taylor. Every lead met with a dead end.
Basically, most of the detectives in the homicide section at some point have touched this case. Whether it be going out looking for surveillance video, we've knocked on neighbors' doors. There were some leads that came out of that traffic survey. Unfortunately, they haven't really come to any type of conclusion on it. They pretty much hit a dead end.
In an email, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office said they've sifted through hours of surveillance video and interviewed everyone in Cieha's life, including her boyfriend.
Was he the last person to have seen your daughter alive?
And he admits to that. From when he saw her to when the timeline of the car was found, he's the last person to see her alive.
What do detectives say about that? Is he a suspect?
Yes, and no one's been ruled out, but he's definitely a suspect.
Nobody ruled out, but still no answers on Cieha's whereabouts. Her mom fears the worst.
We just want to know what happened. more so than how it happened or who did it. It's more so let's have closure. You know, we'll worry about that later of who done it and why.
But let today be the day, huh?
Let today be the day.
And Marnie, when I sat down with Kaya's mom, she told me the worst part really in all of this is the not knowing. She said, but she knows one thing for sure. She said her daughter would never leave her like this. Marnie?
Somebody out there, Brooke, knows something, and the hope is by doing this story, bringing it into the national spotlight, it sparks someone's memory from 2 years ago. So now is the time I want to welcome in anyone online to join in the conversation and the discussion. You're welcome to ask us the questions you have and the answers that we have. We will offer those up. Brooke, I am curious about the boyfriend. What are police saying, and has he ever been a person of interest? Is there an alibi in his case?
Well, unfortunately, those were the questions that we wanted to ask, and we reached out to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. We wanted to talk to that lead detective, and we weren't able to ask those questions. The Sheriff's Office instead pointed us to a podcast that they put together a few months after Kaya disappeared back in August 2020. And in that podcast, I've listened to it now several times to really understand their investigation, where it stood at that point. They mentioned that they've talked to the boyfriend, they've talked to the friend, they've talked to some parents as well, neighbors, and nothing has really turned up. According to Kaya's mom, though, this boyfriend is a suspect. He was questioned. Kaya's mom said that she has tried reaching out to the boyfriend, and he hasn't really been very helpful to her. I will also say that we also tried to find him. We weren't able to do so. So really a lot of questions surrounding that boyfriend. But at this point, detectives really saying that every lead, everybody they've tried to talk to has all kind of gone to a dead end. So now they're hoping that somebody who knows something will come forward instead.
Yeah, and people are asking online, Brooke, where is the boyfriend now? You tried to find him, but to no avail?
Yeah, I asked the mom if she had a contact number for him. She said she didn't have a phone number for him anymore. We tried to track him down, weren't able to. According to mom, this boyfriend has, you know, continued to live his life. But again, according to mom, hasn't been very responsive when she has tried to reach out for help. And she said that's something that is very frustrating for her. I think we can all, you know, understand that. She says this guy admits he was the last person to see Cieha Taylor alive, right before she really just seemingly vanished. And for Kaya's mom, she said for him to not be as helpful as she might want him to be, that is incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, indeed. I know that you spoke extensively with Kaya's mom. I want to play another portion of the interview that we didn't share in that piece right there, talking about some of the physical abuse that she suspected in her relationship. Let's listen.
I think something's happened to her physically because of the choices she was making and the domestic violence that was involved in her and that boyfriend. So she would never just leave me like that.
Did mom elaborate, Brooke, at all on what she was getting at there with domestic violence in her past?
Well, she did say that as far as this boyfriend is concerned, she said she never really liked him. She just kind of had a feeling that he was up to no good, if you will. So, and she said she expressed that to her daughter, that they had gotten into a couple of arguments about it. Kaya knew that mom didn't really approve of this boyfriend. And she just really just overall said that he just didn't really treat her right. And she mentioned that there was some domestic violence involved as well. Something I do want to add, though, at this point, because we weren't able to ask detectives if he is, in fact, a suspect, at this point, we decided not to name him because there are a lot of questions about his involvement that we weren't able to get answers to at this point.
Right. We just don't have that evidence, and we certainly don't want to incriminate anyone to their involvement in this. I am curious, though. Let's talk a little bit, Brooke, about the car. Any signs of foul play or any other evidence left behind? Because it was on these train tracks in a pretty remote area, and the way that it was left there, alarming for all who saw it.
Yeah, the car is definitely a big part of this. I mean, everything left behind in the car is what prompted her mom to say, something isn't right here. So the car definitely a big piece of this whole case. But really, unfortunately, there was not a lot of anything suspicious inside the car. Really, even to the point that mom says sheriff's deputies found this car even days before a family friend found it on the side of the road. So sheriff's deputies found the car running on train tracks. Cieha Taylor nowhere to be found. But the sheriff's deputies, I guess, didn't suspect anything too off other than the fact that there was a running car on train tracks. And so they just decided to move it to the side of the road and turn it off. And then a few days later, family, friends were able to find this car and get inside. That's when they noticed, everything was there. Her clothes, her social security card, her cell phone. The cell phone's really the key that mom was like, something is not right here.
Right, and that's peculiar. I mean, a car left running near train tracks with all of the identification inside. You wonder if precious moments were missed and lapsed before the family was able to find it. I want to play another piece of the conversation, Brooke, that you had with mom about what she thinks happened to her daughter.
As her mom, what do you think happened to Cieha?
I think she's passed. I just, in my heart of hearts as a mother, just knowing her like I did, she wouldn't do this. She wouldn't just walk away from her life.
Brooke, it is so heartbreaking to hear the mom losing hope, because in so many of these cases, hope is all that many of these families have to hold on to. How is the mom doing, and what is she doing to continue to try to keep Cieha's story out there?
Yeah, well, she said that, they have a Facebook group, they have an Instagram page as well, and they typically post every so often, probably once a month at this point. She said they post something really just to keep it out there, keep Cieha's name out there. They also the town that Cieha grew up in is a pretty small town, so she said that, everybody in town still knows the story, knows Cieha, they grew up with her, and so people definitely know the story. It's just, unfortunately, it seems like every lead that detectives get, it just kind of comes to a dead end. But yeah, mom told me, she said, the first year she was really holding on to hope. She said it was incredibly difficult to do anything. And now that we've passed the 2-year mark and then some, she said she just knows her daughter, and she said that if her daughter was still alive, that she would have figured out a way to contact her. Yeah. She said, this is not like Cieha to not have called me. And so that's why she just says in her heart of hearts that she thinks that her daughter's no longer alive. But even without that, she says at this point she just wants to know what happened. It's the waiting game, it's the not knowing, it's the no answers. And she says every day she prays, let today be the day.
I mean, just the agony in not knowing and having to live this nightmare every single day when you wake up is just horrible. Brooke, I have another question for you. This is again on YouTube. Someone is wondering, are there any other suspects? Could you glean that information from the podcast or what authorities have shared?
It doesn't sound like there are any other suspects. And I'll even say, though, too, in that podcast, detectives didn't say if there was, in fact, a suspect. But they said that they interviewed and spoke with basically everybody in this area. It is a pretty remote, rural area where they found her car, but they said they knocked on neighbors' doors. They talked to the boyfriend, they talked to that friend, and, they've gone through hours of surveillance video. And unfortunately, it just hasn't turned up into anything. And so, yeah, unfortunately, that was a big question we wanted to ask. Are there suspects? Are they really looking at somebody in particular? But the sheriff's office said that really everything that can be said was said in that podcast, and that's what they just kept referring us to.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note, too, on some of these missing cases that we cover, police will engage with us and share information. In others, they're a little bit more tight-lipped. It doesn't mean that they're not actively investigating. It just means that they're keeping it a little closer to the vest, but it can be frustrating for a family who wants to get answers. A couple other comments. We've got a comment here from Crazy Coda Bear. Says an empty car running on the tracks and the cops didn't see anything wrong with that ? So I think they sort of think, yeah, what happened? A question, though, here for you, Brooke. Was the area searched with trauma or cadaver dogs starting from the car in the house. That another question from online tonight.
Yeah, in that podcast, again, that I keep referring to, the lead detective said that they did bring out bloodhounds at one point to search the area where they found that car. Again, as I mentioned, it was a very rural area, and so there was a lot of grass and all of that, so they brought out dogs. That didn't turn up anything suspicious, they said. They also printed out hundreds of flyers, apparently, with her picture and information. Her family is offering a reward. And I also want to go back to that comment about the car, and that is something that Kaya's mom said really kind of sits with her and is upsetting to her as well. She said that nobody called her, that according to Kaya's mom, these deputies moved the car off of the train tracks and just kind of left it there, and then it was a friend who was looking for Kaya who spotted the car pulled off on the side of the road. And so mom says that is incredibly frustrating, especially in cases like this. As we've heard, those initial hours are crucial. So mom says, she's really disappointed that, they missed out on those initial hours, and, maybe the outcome would still be the same. Maybe they still wouldn't have any answers, but at least they would have gotten a chance to get a head start in looking for her. So, because by the time they found the car, it had already been several days.
Right.
And so it's very frustrating for the family, of course.
What did mom say about Kaya's state of mind leading up to her disappearance? I mean, were there any other red flags that she had communicated, things that become clear in hindsight, right? Comments that she may have made?
She did mention that, Kaya had sort of started to run in with the wrong crowd. She had started experimenting with drugs. But she still said, Kaya was a good girl who would always reach out to her mom. And, she even saw her daughter a couple of days before her disappearance. So she would still touch base. But mom did say that day, apparently there was some sort of fight between Kaya and her boyfriend. She doesn't know what the fight was about. She only knows that Kaya called a friend, and that friend said, okay, that's fine, come over to my house. I'm at work right now, but come over to my house. Kaya never showed up. And so I guess, they tried calling her and she wasn't answering, and that's when that friend went out and started looking for her and came across her car. And that's kind of really what started all of this. But mom just said, she thinks there was some kind of fight, but she doesn't really know what it was about, what the conversation was about, any of that.
Final question for you, Brooke, from another viewer online who has joined us. They're asking if police are hopeful that Kaya will be found alive. I know you mentioned it's an active investigation. What more can you share?
Yeah, police haven't said whether or not they are hopeful, but they are definitely asking for help still. They said this is very much still an active investigation. They said that as soon as the missing persons report was filed, that they started an aggressive search for Kaya. And, at this point, law enforcement, family, friends, really everybody asking for somebody to come forward. Kaya's mom said, somebody knows something. She didn't just vanish. So somebody knows something, and they're just waiting for that one person to call. And, like I said, they're offering a reward. People can call anonymously. They're just really holding on to hope. Kaya's mom again saying, let today be the day they get answers.
Well, I pray that it is. Kaya disappeared in February of 2020. Brooke Schaefer on the case. Give our best to Kaya's mom. I can't even begin to relate to the pain that she must be going through right now. Thank you. And for you at home, thank you as well for joining in this conversation. As I mentioned time and time again, the more attention we pay to these cases, the closer these families get to some answers. So not only do we appreciate you joining in the conversation, but please share this story with your social network, because maybe a share here or there leads to the answers that Kaya's mom wants. If you have any information in this case, you can call the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, that number there on your screen. And each week here, our team at Prime tries to shed light on these cases just like Kaya's. We need your help to do so. If someone you love or you care about has gone missing, or you know of a case that you think that our team should be looking into, many of our cases come from the public. Submit a request on our website, newsnationnow.com/ missing. Thank you, as always, for joining us tonight, and I hope this brings some answers and some closure to Kaya's family, particularly her mom. Good night. We'll see you next time.